Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Julie Morganlender, and I am here to introduce you to The Things We Don't Say, an anthology of chronic illness truths, which was just published this week. What you're about to see is the live recording of the book launch party, which was live recorded on June 28th. So anytime I mention any links in the chat box, please know I'll be putting those in the description below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please hit like below. That would really help. And while you can't ask any questions in the Q&A when we do it live, please do post them below in the comments and I will be happy to come in and answer them for you. So again, thanks for being here and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, so hi everyone, welcome and thank you so much for being here to celebrate with me. This is just amazing and I'm so thrilled to see so many people here, people I know and people I don't, and just everyone. It's absolutely wonderful. So this is the book launch for The Things We Don't Say, an anthology of chronic illness truths. Let's get it in the screen there. I keep seeing people clapping. It's just making me laugh. So it's a little strange, I think, for some people to do this virtually. I think for folks with chronic illness, it's probably less strange. I know for me, I knew ages ago, long before the pandemic, that I was not going to do an in-person book launch because I was pretty sure I wouldn't have the energy for it, and I was right. This week is totally kicking my butt. That's the thing about having adrenal issues, is that you know how like bad stuff can just exhaust you, good stuff exhausts you also. So like the death of a loved one can like destroy you, but winning the lottery would have that same impact on me. So as wonderful as this has been, and right now I'm putting myself together and I'm medicated, I'm doing the best I can. I've been pretty much collapsed for the last like day, and I'm sure I will be tonight, and that's fine. This is all about chronic illness after all. So thank you for being here, because even though I wasn't going to do an in-person party, I did think I'd like go out to lunch with a friend, or I don't know, run into people in my life and be able to share the book that people have been hearing about for 6 years. And it's really hard to not be able to do that. My wonderful mother showed up at my door with flowers on Friday, a lovely surprise, and it was just the best thing in the world. And we got to hang out and chat from, 8 feet apart, sitting outside wearing masks, but still, it was fantastic. So thank you for being here. This is an excellent second best option. What's going to happen is I'm going to talk very briefly about the book. The goal is to have this be hopefully no more than an hour, because I know we are all sick of screens these days. I'm going to talk very briefly about the book and read a couple of short passages, and then we'll mainly just do a Q&A. So you can ask me anything, and you can also ask authors questions if you want. I will read off a list of authors later, and if you want to ask about a topic, you can do that. So I have a question for somebody who wrote about fibromyalgia. I have a question for somebody who wrote about parenthood, things like that. So I'll explain when we get to the Q&A how to do it. So far, I believe the brief list of authors that I've got present are, we have Deepti Dalit Kumar, Devin Reynolds, Jane Leslie, Kathleen Gemmel, Marcia Aller, Sheila Bolt Rudisill, Zoe Bateman, Heron Greensmith, Charity Cole, Kaya Koninsky, Marcia Aller, and Keirdra Cheney. And I think it's amazing that you all made it. So thank you, especially to those of you in awkward time zones. Call out to Deepti, who's literally halfway around the world right now and is probably getting ready for bed. So anyway, this is a nonfiction anthology. It's 50 stories by 42 authors, including me, from around the world. And we are different ethnicities, races, ages, gender identities, sexual orientations. I really tried to have a diverse array of voices. That was really important to me with this. And we have a lot of different chronic illnesses, some mental health related, some physical health related, some both. And there's just, again, a big variety. Each story includes the author's name and where they're located at the start, so like that. And then the end of each one has the author's bio and their photo. So, yeah, there we go. And I think it's a good way just to feel like you know people a little better. I know for me, it really helps me feel like I know who's speaking rather than just printed words on a page, which feel like they could be written by anybody. Oh, Rosie's here too. Excellent. And someone asked, could I list the topics the authors wrote about? There are not every story is on a single topic, so I think that would take the whole hour, but I will get into that a little bit more. We'll get to that in a bit. So if you want to know more about the authors, though, if you go to the book's website, chronicillnesstruths.com, and I'm sorry for looking away, but I do need notes because, brain fog. So if you go to the website and then at the top, go to About. If you look at About the authors, you can see all of their bios, where they're from, their photos in color, which are gorgeous. The book is black and white, but the ebook is in color. And you can just get a good sense of who's in the book, who's doing the speaking in the book. And I really love being able to see that. So there's a lot of stigma around chronic illness, which I doubt anyone here is surprised by. And because there's a lot of stigma, we don't talk about it. And then because we don't talk about it, I think the stigma gets worse. So I sort of wondered what would happen if we did talk about it. And about a decade ago, I started blogging anonymously about chronic illness. And it was interesting because I posted about some really private things, and I wasn't going to because no one talks about that stuff, so I thought there was no interest. But those ended up being by far my most popular posts, and a lot of people specifically commented saying, I'm feeling the same way, I've experienced the same thing, I wish people would talk about this. So it really showed that we do need to talk about it. And there's a lot that's misunderstood or maligned, and I wanted to bring some truth and clarity. So my hope is that for anyone who has chronic illnesses, this will help them feel a bit less alone, because this is a very lonely, isolating thing. And I know it's taken me a long time to build up community, and I still feel that way sometimes, but a lot less than I used to. But I know for a lot of years, I had no one, and you feel so alone. So I'm really hoping this will help. And for people who don't have chronic illnesses, I think it's one of those things you can't really understand unless you've lived it, but you can definitely understand more. And I'm really hoping this book will help people just understand more than they do so far. So that's my really brief spiel. I'm trying to not go on and on because I could talk about this all day long. And as much as I'm sure you'd love that, I don't want to do that for too long. So at the end, by the way, I'm going to share a bonus with everyone. I have to remember to do that. So I do want to read a few quick passages just to give a flavor of the book. I am taking out any profanity. There's not a lot in the book. There's some, and I know there could be kids in the background listening to this. So I'm going to take that out. And a lot of the stories are really positive, and a lot are really negative, and a lot are in the middle. They have elements of each. And this is a celebration, so I'm trying to keep it towards the positive side, but I didn't want anyone to feel like I was skewing or misrepresenting what the book's about. So the first piece I'm going to read is from I Am Not My Cornea by Keirdre Chaney. And if you're in the paperback, it's page 59. And Keirdre wrote, there's this dichotomy about illness, a dangerous one that exists in our society where you are either 100% well or 100% sick. And if you're sick, then you stay out of view until you're 100% well again, like Holcomb. And that's BS. A lot of us aren't 100% well, but we're fine, and we're living our lives as best we can. Rather than living a false life to make others feel better, we tackle it full on, knowing there will be good days, great days, bad days, and awful days. But through it all, we are still ourselves. I am me, and not defined by my keratoconus. And I just really appreciated that. I know I've definitely been subjected to that, oh, if you can function even a little bit some of the time, then clearly you're making it up if you say you can't do something. And it makes what's already a difficult situation so much harder. And I really love the way that Keirdre expressed that. The next little short piece I will read is from PTSD, The Illness I Couldn't See by Amy Ostricher on page 65, if you're in the book. So Amy wrote, My perspective on illness has changed since I was a child, and it's also changed since my last surgical intervention. I've learned that illness isn't always present in physical scars. I've learned that some wounds aren't visible, and sometimes we don't even know we have them until we need to take care of them. I've also learned that I'm resilient and strong. I have been taken apart and put together again differently, yet even more beautiful than before, like a mosaic. I'm still reassembling myself day by day and learning to love what I can build. And I love that image of a mosaic. That never occurred to me, but it is such a beautiful way of expressing this feeling, because I also feel like I've been taken apart and put back together multiple times. And I just really love that. I also really appreciate Amy mentioning the wounds that aren't visible. I know for me, I've had chronic illness symptoms since I was 12, even though I wasn't diagnosed until my 20s. And I am only now beginning to scratch the surface of how deep some of those wounds go. It's a difficult thing, and again, because we don't talk about it, a lot of it gets pushed aside and not addressed. So I'm really glad that Amy brought that up. And I'm going to read two pieces back to back, just a short bit of each, because I think they fit really well together. Oops, lost my place, sorry. The first is from Mistreated by Katie Ernst, and it's on page 88. And let's see, I started talking to other women with chronic illnesses, and I heard the same story over and over. They went to the doctor and their symptoms were dismissed. In fact, I've never met a woman with a chronic illness who hasn't been accused of making up her symptoms for attention, having anxiety or depression, or being a hypochondriac. And from Chronic Pain versus Masculinity by Brett Stevenson on page 206. Men do not have to take pain and challenges stoically, especially when they simply cannot. We must let go of all those age-old stereotypes and expectations. We need to not get angry when our friends complain of a sore back after golfing or hiking. It's a poor attempt to commiserate, but an attempt nonetheless. Using a cane or butt cushion is not a sign of weakness, just adaptation. Leaving a group early because you can't sit any longer is not a sign of weakness, nor is pulling the social plug completely some days to just try and get through the day and night. I have little to prove as a man at this point in my life. Rather, I've let go of my old manhood and masculinity dogma, and my new goal is to ride this out gracefully and hopefully with a sense of humor. And I'm guessing you can see why I chose to read those two together. I know the gender divide is definitely not 100%. I've been in rooms where I've asked, okay, who here's had someone say that it's all in your head? And every single hand goes up every time, regardless of gender. But women and people perceived as female definitely experience that more, and there has been research on that. And Catherine's story actually talks about some of that research. And men, everyone is told, oh, just buck up and you can do better. But there's so much toxic masculinity in our culture that anyone who's perceived as male is definitely perceived as weak, and there's something wrong with them, and they're not real men. And that's just hurting us all. That's not helping anybody. What we need to do is acknowledge this problem and accept it and support each other, not tear each other down for it. So I know it's intense, and it's really hard to have a celebration when the topic is chronic illness, let's face it. But I think there's a lot of positivity to this also. So the last piece I'm going to read is something that I wrote. And this is from My Journey for Answers, because no one will care more about my health than me. I think the title says a lot there. And this is on page 229. And I wrote, I will never be healthy. It has taken me a long time to accept that. Some days I acknowledge that reality with understanding and grace. Other days I whine, cry, and lament. Whine me. But I know that no matter how I feel about it, it's my reality. I cannot change the fact that I will never be healthy, but I can continue to work toward feeling less sick. In small ways, it's working. And then skipping down, improving my health is an ongoing process that I will struggle with the rest of my life. It is not easy. Some days I question if I can do it, but I know that for me there is no choice. This is hard stuff, and I won't lie about that. But I push through, and I am grateful for the improvements that I have found, even while I struggle constantly. And skipping once more, my life changed because I took control of my own medical health. And it really did. For me, that was the single best thing that I ever did to take care of myself, was to stop listening to all the doctors and hit the library. That's what did it for me. And in some metaphorical ways, it saved my life, and it's possible it might have literally also. So that's what my story was about there. So again, I know these are intense, but I have a feeling that if you have chronic illnesses, these probably resonated. And if they did, I'd really love it if you put it in the chat box. I can see a few people nodding their heads, but I can only see a quarter of the screens at once. I'm going to quickly flip through here because I want to see everybody. And unfortunately, Zoom just can't do that. Let's see. Oh, thank you so much for the lovely messages, folks. I'm loving seeing them. Oh, it's so fun to flip through. And look, new people joined who I hadn't been aware of. So again, hi, everyone. I know no one can tell who I'm waving at, but if you think I'm waving at you, then I am. Let's go with that. Okay, so we're going to do the Q&A. I am going to just quickly share the link to the book again in the chat box for anybody who's interested. So here is the book. I'm really glad that those pieces resonated with you folks. That is, of course, the whole point. I'm also sharing the link to Goodreads, so if you're on there, feel free to add the book to your bookshelf. If you've read the book, or when you've read the book, leave a review. That would be super helpful. So for the Q&A, okay, you can ask anything. I'm somebody where you can ask me absolutely anything, and if I don't want to answer, I just will tell you I don't want to answer, but you really can't insult me too easily. There are going to be a couple different ways. So if you are only on the phone, I think there might be one person who's only on the phone, like on a landline. I'll give a chance for you to ask a question. You can just unmute yourself. But for everybody else, if you just unmute, it's going to be, Zoom won't like it, we'll put it that way. So there are two options. You can put a question into the chat box. And if you do that, you can either share something with everyone, or there's an option to share it only with me. Okay, I'm not seeing exactly what it's called because I am me, but I think it's something like share with host, and then I'll be the only one to see it. So when I read out the question, I won't say your name, and if you want to keep something private, you can do that. The other option is if you look in your menu, you should have an option for participants, and within that, one of the options is raise hand. So if you raise your hand, I should in theory be notified, and I can unmute you so that you can verbally ask your question. So we have a lot of the authors here today, which is fantastic. I'm going to read out a short list. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you quickly off the top of my head what every single one of them wrote about, but you can also ask for a topic. So who wrote about X, Y, or Z? And for you authors, put in the chat box or raise your hand if you want to be the one to answer the question. So the folks we have here are Deepti Dilip Kumar, Devin Reynolds, Jane Leslie, Kathy Gemmel, Marsha Aller, Sheila Bolt Rudisil, Zoe Bateman, Heron Greensmith, Charity Cole, Chaya Kaninsky, sorry. Ravinsky is my grandmother's name. Don't know why that popped into my head. Keirdra Cheney and Rosie Nash. So, I'm sorry I just said that quickly. Actually, you know what? I can copy and paste that into the chat. The modern technology is, you know, amazing. And I'm sorry that a couple of last names might not be there because I was just quickly making notes as people joined in the call. Okay, so I will start off by just answering very quickly a couple of questions that I've been asked most often, and then I'll get to the ones that people have started to post. So, okay, people have asked what formats the book will be in. Right now, it is this lovely paperback with actual pages, which I still can't believe. And there's an ebook. Unfortunately, the paperback's only available in about a half dozen countries. The ebook should be available everywhere. They're on Amazon. My plan is to next make the ebook available in more locations, hopefully completely available for everyone around the world. And after that, I'd like to do an audiobook. But both of those things are going to take time, energy, and money, and I just haven't had the capacity yet. But I would like to have the book available in other sites besides Amazon, and the audiobook is a big priority because obviously, hello, accessibility. So I will be working on that, and if you're on the email list, I will be updating you as to when that will be available. let's see, a lot of people have asked what illnesses are covered, and I think the best way to answer that would be actually for you to go to the website. At the top of the page is the glossary, and I will link to it in the chat as well. If you look through that glossary, you'll get a really good sense of what's in the book. What I did is I put it on the website so that I could link to other websites so you can get more information, and I can keep it up to date more easily than if it was in the book. So I spent a lot of time reading a lot of definitions for each term, and I tried to share the ones that I felt were most appropriate and true and representative. So if you have any concerns, let me know, but I think that will really tell you a lot. I had a couple of more common questions, but I think we should just get to yours. So if there's anyone on the phone that has a question, now's a great time to unmute yourself. Okay, so one person wrote, I am married to chronic pain and you are telling my life story. I've also been called crazy at the doctor's office while there as a support person. Yeah, usually support people get more respect than that. But it is unfortunate that, yeah, there's just so much disbelief even in the medical profession, and I find that incredibly upsetting. Do you have a date when we can listen to this video? No. So the video is going to be available. It's going to take me a while to do the captions. That can take a while, and it depends on how I feel. So if I'm feeling great, it could be uploaded tomorrow. If I'm not feeling great, it's going to be a week. You know, the book took me 6 years because I just prioritized my health, and I'm still doing that. So, you know, if you're on the list, though, on the email list, you'll get an email and you'll know. So hopefully within the week. I'd really like it to be within the week, hopefully within a few days, but I make no promises. Do you have any ideas about forming a virtual community of people who are reading the book or who are authors? Now, there's an interesting question I haven't been asked before. I think that everyone should try and start their own virtual communities. I haven't thought about doing one myself, but now I'm thinking about it. It's an interesting idea, Jane. I'll give that one some thought, but if folks do want to figure out how to reach out, I found social media to be really helpful. I do a lot with the chronic illness Facebook groups. They've been really amazing, and I've met some great people that way. And Twitter has some good hashtags, although of course you have to watch out on Twitter. Tumblr also is pretty active. I'm not on all of the social media platforms. I think that for me, being open about my illness has made a big difference because I found people who I already knew who didn't necessarily know I had chronic illness, and I didn't know that they did, but because I was talking about it, then they felt comfortable opening up to me. So I found a lot of community that way amongst people I was already friendly with, and I recommend it if it's something you feel comfortable talking about. I mean, for me, it was as easy as, what have you been up to? Oh, I'm working on a book. And they ask what it's about. And there you go. There's a conversation starter. But, you know, I'm sure you could make up something yourself. I mentioned blogging about chronic illness. That's a really good way. I met some amazing people that way as well. And I highly recommend it. If anyone wants to start blog about chronic illness and you don't know how, just reach out. I'm no expert, but I'm happy to help. Marisha told me there are 2 people on the phone, which is awesome. But until someone unmutes, I won't be able to hear them. But if you want to unmute, feel free. Okay, someone asked, how did I find the authors? I put out calls for writing on social media and Craigslist, although Craigslist was a big bust. I just ended up getting harassed there, to be honest. But social media was really good. Tumblr really took off. I don't know why. I have like a few thousand followers there. I still don't know how that happened because I'm no expert. And I just kept asking, telling everyone I came into contact with. I had business cards I was handing out all over the place. And a couple of writing blogs picked up on it and posted, you know, if you're looking for places to submit your writing, here's a list. And I was on that list. And one of them in particular ended up sending quite a few people my way. So I ended up getting, I think, around 150 submissions and then used about 50. So it was a pretty good number, but it took about 1.5 years for me to get them. So it wasn't definitely not quick. Oh, somebody mentioned doing sign language applause by waving their hands, jazz hands. Yes, like this, which I love. So anytime you want to cheer, let's cheer the authors. Yay, authors. Yay, that's awesome. Okay, so one of the authors asked me about getting complimentary copy of the book. I actually have sent a few emails about it, so if you haven't been getting them, let's talk later. Because I've been trying to check in and get everyone's addresses updated and everything. Okay, so Charity wrote, my topics were multiple sclerosis, postpartum depression, and bipolar depression. So there you go. There's one set of topics. Maura wrote, congratulations to all the authors for your courage to tell your personal stories. And I agree. It definitely takes a lot to do that. And I know I struggled with that for sure. You know, blogging anonymously is one thing, but putting my name on it is another. And I definitely struggled with what to share and what not to share. And a few people wrote anonymously. They used pseudonyms. That's fine. It's still hard to share this stuff publicly. So everyone definitely deserves applause for that. Someone asked if I'm going to do the audio. People keep asking me that. I find that hilarious. No, I do not have the diction for that at all. I also don't have the setup. I also don't have the physical ability. It's actually really physically taxing to do that kind of audio recording. I've spoken to people who do it professionally who say it's tough, never mind the amateurs I know who do it. So I just would not have the energy. I'm going to find somebody. There are different ways of doing it, and I will be reaching out. Maybe somebody knows somebody, friends of friends. I'd love to have someone who has an association, who has chronic illness or a loved one with chronic illness, but I'm not really going to get into that quite yet. Like I said, I need to rest first for a few weeks, but I will reach out when I'm ready. Someone said, for any of the authors, so authors, pay attention. What are the top helpful actions that friends and family can take to support someone with chronic illness? Okay, who wants to answer? Unmute yourselves. Okay, Zoe wants to answer, and I'll unmute you.
For me, a lot of it is just being a bit more understanding. So, like, personally for me, I can't go out with my friends all the time. If, like, my friends will go out twice a week together, but I can only go out once a month possibly, but still invite me. If that makes, like, still make that tiny bit of an effort to let me know that I'm still valued. And it's also understand that if I say, hang on, I can't go to that restaurant because it's inaccessible, I'm not saying you're a bad person at all. I'm just saying that restaurant's not great for me. You can go there, but can we go somewhere else if we're together? It's just taking a bit of second of understanding and just treat us human, like we're human, not an alien, I guess.
That's a really good answer. Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said. Anyone else want to add to that?
Hey, it's Rosie here. I'll answer as well.
Go for it.
Yeah, so what Zoe said about keeping in mind accessibility issues. So just asking if you plan on inviting your friend with chronic illness to go somewhere and they use a mobility aid, just keeping that in mind about where you're going and if there's going to be stairs, because every time we go out, there's like a checklist we have in our head, you know, are there toilets? Are they only going to be upstairs? Are there giant hills? There's so many variables that we have to analyze before going to somewhere. So that's really important. And also for my friends and family, having them offer to come to appointments and stuff has been a game changer for me. Often they don't come in the room, but just their moral support really helps. Especially as a young female, I've suffered that kind of mentality from doctors in the medical system of hypochondria and anxiety, and just having that moral support when you come out of a bad appointment makes all the difference.
That's a really good point. I've been to appointments with a few friends. I've had people come to mine, and you're right, it makes a really big difference. Yeah. One of my favorite things was going to an appointment where they had emotional support dogs, and oh my gosh, that was so helpful. Oh wow, did that help? I wish they all had that. I see Jane wants to answer also. Go for it, Jane.
So I think the common thread in just those two questions is the word ask. And I think that in many ways, when we're dealing with differences and we're anxious, and most of the people that, or many of the people that we come into contact with as people with chronic illness are anxious for many different reasons. And when we're anxious, we tend to say and speak and tell. And the hardest thing to do is to be vulnerable and ask. But the biggest gift that we can give each other and those who we love who have chronic illness is to ask, and to ask very, very basic questions. For example, is it okay to ask? Are you up for me asking you a little bit about this? Is today a day that you would really rather not have me find out things about what you need? Is today, you know, because often, and the other issue I think often with asking is people confuse asking with rhetorical questions. For example, have you ever considered yoga? Actually, what that person is probably saying is, I think that yoga might be helpful for you. So I do think it's important that we're teachable, and that we help our community to be teachable, and that we're teachable for each other. And yeah, I guess that would be the thing I would say, and which helps the people who are asking the questions to become more just generally to widen their sense of self. And yeah, asking questions, but asking genuine questions, I would say, would be one of the things.
I agree. I think being genuine is very key. I'm going to move on because there's such a long list of questions, which amazes me. So someone asked if I know of any support groups online or on Facebook. So the groups that I'm in are really specific to my conditions. Mostly right now I'm in groups for celiac disease, Hashimoto's disease, and adrenal fatigue, because those are what are my primary issues. There are a ton out there, and I think it's a matter of just searching and finding ones that feel like a good fit, because each one has its own tone. Some are really positive, some are really not. Some are full of factual information, and some people act as if they're giving factual information and they're really not. So I think you just have to try them out and see what's a good fit. Someone suggested it would be helpful and interesting to have a book group for people with chronic illnesses to discuss big ideas, individual details, and how we can be supportive. I love that idea. Go ahead, form book groups. I think that's wonderful. The more we have, the better. And there are certainly plenty of books on this subject. So I think you could have a club going for many years reading just what's already been written, never mind what has yet to be written. Jen wrote, brava to all for sharing. Thank you. A couple of people said that they know people who can help with audiobooks. So we'll definitely talk about that when the time comes. Someone asked, have you considered inviting people to read their own stories if they want to, are able to, for the audiobook? So I think that might be a little logistically difficult for a lot of reasons. What I've been thinking about is asking the authors if they might want to read their books and post those on YouTube. And if they don't feel comfortable with their faces, we could use a different image. But I think that's a platform where it might be easier, but I know also not everyone will be able to do it for various reasons. So I have to figure out what makes the most sense and what everyone will be able to do. And that's another of those things that's been in my head for later when I have the capacity, which is so not now, but it's definitely on my long list of things that I'm considering. Let's see, someone else knows someone who might be able to help with the audio, which is great. This is amazing how many people just in this little party know about it. Know people. Let's see. Okay. So Jane wrote, hi, Anne Brinkerhoff. I've been mulling over the idea of starting a chronic illness group. I've been facilitating such groups for many years as a clinical social worker, but it's only now that it seemed feasible to do that virtually. So you two should talk. This is all spot on, says Kirdra. So I'm glad it's resonating with you. I know for a lot of the people who wrote stories, they read their own. Not everyone's read the entire book yet. So some of this is new information. And Chaya Hazel Kaninsky wrote great points. Jane wrote, do it. Oh no, Christine wrote to Jane, do it. It would be so valuable to people in more remote areas to have a support group that isn't only in a major city in the middle of the workday. So Jane, I think if you want to, you could easily be doing an online group that people would be happy to join. Let's see, Chaya wrote, I would also add to that question that it's really important to show up for the political fights that will affect people with chronic illnesses. For instance, in the United States, we've had to fight to keep the Affordable Care Act. That's our sort of health care law, basically, with funding for Medicaid, which is health insurance for low-income people, with funding for Medicaid and the protections for people with pre-existing conditions. And then interpersonally, it's super helpful to still have my friends and people in the organizations I'm part of to ask me for help or advice with things they're figuring out and not just assume I don't have capacity or spoons. It feels good to be asked and to contribute. So spoons is a colloquial shorthand for having the energy and capacity. When someone has chronic illness, we sometimes talk about our available reserves in terms of spoons. And if you look up spoon theory, Google it, it's awesome. It's mentioned several times in the book. It's in the glossary. I think it's definitely in the index. Spoon theory really speaks to a lot of us. And I agree that it's so important for people to keep asking when they want help and not just assume we can't do something. Especially, I know for me, most people in my life ask because they know I have no problem saying no. And I try to be clear about that to everybody. Please ask me to go out, ask me to do you a favor, ask me for anything, and I'll tell you if I can't do it. And I'd rather do that than have you assume that I can't. And as for the political stuff, wow, I don't think that needs a lot of explanation, especially in the US. And that I could go on with all day, so I won't. Marcia wrote, Dear Jane, I would be interested in your group if you started one. They are so hard to find. Deirdre agrees with Chaya. Okay, someone privately asked, can you ask this? Myself and someone in my family have misophonia, so we have to advocate for ourselves around noise sensitivity as part of a larger issue. How do you deal with people who might think one are difficult or high maintenance when you can't help the issue? There's a story in the book called High Maintenance, actually. Suggest you read it. I think it's hard because some people are going to be open to hearing it and some aren't. But I just try and advocate for myself and other authors, if you're interested in answering, please raise a hand. I try and advocate for myself in a very factual way. So less emotional, because I found, especially since I was a girl when this started, it was assumed that I was exaggerating and trying to get attention. So I learned at a very young age to go with the facts, and that has persisted, even though I am no longer that young girl, but I am a woman who is perceived to be somewhat young. And I think that that's still what I need to do. And I just keep repeating the issue and try and educate people as much as possible. Yeah, but just to be really clear, this is a medical necessity, not a preference, I think is really important to emphasize. Zoe, what did you want to add? Let's see.
I think for me, one of the important things I've discovered is finding something really simple to explain it. So my problem is EDS, or that's one of my main issues. So how I explain it is that everyone else has the proper glue that you actually want, and the stuff that keeps my body together is the glue that kind of didn't quite make it through and is sort of at the pound shop for a penny, and that's why everything's going wrong. And that really helps explain it to people. And I think also it's stuff like explains that I can't go from my bed to the bathroom, which is 3 steps that way, without being in pain. Now, that is such a simple way of explaining it to people that that a lot of other things I find is too much for people to understand. They go, some noises have issues for me, People go, oh yeah, but if I hear a siren for 20 minutes, that hurts, that's fine. That's normal. Whereas actually going, actually, no, here's a very specific small example, and they can't refute it as much. And also it's a very easy way of explaining it, even when you're low spoons or energy or anything.
Yeah, I really like that, Zoe. I use a lot of analogies too. The other thing I've done, and I reserve this only for people who are really refusing to understand, I will be explicit and I will do the TMI approach. And let me tell you, that gets people's attention. Like Zoe said, walking 3 steps to the bathroom, but I have said, oh, you think that little bit of that tiny crumb won't hurt me? Well, let me tell you about the time I was bleeding out of my hands and had diarrhea so bad that I got dehydrated. And I mean, I will get into detail, let me tell you. And guess what? They start to take it a little bit more seriously, or at least keep it to themselves because they don't want to hear that again. So it's not something I start with. Yeah, I'm seeing some people clapping on that one. I don't start with that by any means, but when people are really being jerks about it, oh yeah, I will go there. Okay, so someone said, this could be a can of worms, but what would you think a medical system that really serves people with chronic illness would look like? Because I think I've heard that even before the Trump administration started hacking the ACH pieces, people were not well served. I don't know. I think we need people smarter than me to answer that question. I have a lot of opinions on some aspects that need to be included and a lot that need to be avoided. But what the overall system looks like, I'm not sure, because I talk to enough friends in other parts of the world, and I've been involved on social media, and I've heard enough about systems all over the world. I haven't heard of one that's great. I think the ACA was going in the right direction, and I think that if we could have continued filling in the gaps that existed in it when it was created, we might have stood a better chance, but that just never happened. Rosie, what is it that you want to add? I'd love to hear.
I'm not quite sure how to answer about the medical system specifically. I live in Australia, which our healthcare system is very different from America and the UK. But I think in regards to treatment by the medical system for people with chronic illnesses, it starts with the training of doctors, better education on managing patients with chronic illnesses, not making assumptions. For the EDS, which Zoe has and which I'm suspected to have, they say when you hear hoofbeats, think zebras, not horses, because when doctors are in medical school, they're trained that if they hear hoofbeats, it's probably a horse because that's what you would expect. But sometimes it's the unexpected things, which often is why it takes us so long to get diagnosed. And so I think that training in individuals' doctors' hearts way back in medical school is a good way for the medical system to shift their treatment of us.
That's a really good point. Very, yes, excellent points. Listen to Rosie there. I'm going to, oh, I need to scroll up here. Okay, people keep saying they want to join this online support group that doesn't exist yet. I don't know if it ever will, but I'm putting my email address in the box, julie@chronicillnesstruths.com. If you want to join that group, email me, and if it comes together in some way, I will let people know. No promises at all. I know it's very unlikely, but you know, just in case, because I know some of you who are expressing interest, but I don't know everyone, and I'm certainly not going to remember it, and the chat box doesn't get saved when I shut this down. So, okay, let's see what else is here. Oh, Jane wants to say something.
Yeah, if anybody's interested, you can give them my email address as well.
Well, this is going to be on YouTube. I don't know if you want me reading that out right now.
Oh, no. If they
message me. Okay, yes, I will do that. There we go. We have a plan. You message me and I'll put you in touch with Jane. Excellent. Okay, so Rosie wrote, it's so interesting how the world suddenly became virtually accessible because of coronavirus. For those of us with chronic illnesses, we have fought to be able to do these jobs from home when we are not well. Now that everyone needs it, suddenly it can be done. Yeah, I have many thoughts and feelings on that, especially the fact that now that businesses are opening here in the US, people are being told to go back to work, and folks who are worried about being at risk are saying, I don't feel comfortable going back. And now they're being told, well, now this is no longer considered an accessibility thing. This is no longer a reasonable accommodation. You have to come into work. And it's like, you know, we've fought for this for so long. Everyone was allowed to work from home for 3 months, and yet it's being taken away again. And it's just so frustrating. I saw a hand and then it disappeared. I think more maybe? No? Okay. Well, if someone did do the hand raise thing on here, do it again. I'm flipping between screens trying to watch for those. Okay, someone else said they want to join the group with Jane. Rosie wrote, preach Zoe. So Zoe, you're getting lots of applause. Christine would like to join the group if it's not on Facebook. Deepti wrote, I completely agree, Rosie. I'm a teacher, and though I miss my kids, I'm sort of relieved that I just have to walk into the next room to take my class, and 40 minutes later, I don't have to wait to have a quick nap or snack. I can lie down in the short break, things I could never dream of in a regular school environment. Yeah, I'm really glad you can do that now. And it's, of course, something you should be able to do more, but yeah, I'm glad you can do it for now, at least. Heron wrote, in terms of a healthcare system that serves chronic illness, truths would certainly start from a place of free, accessible care. Capitalism and insurance disincentivize those of us with chronic or difficult to diagnose illnesses to access care. Yeah, that's true. My only concern is where I see care that's free, that's offered in other areas. There are a lot of restrictions that come along with it. So I would just want to see a system that, you know, still addresses the needs of folks with chronic illness. But someone else wrote, yes, Heron, so true. Devin wrote, I've never heard that zebra horse saying before. Yeah, I love that one. I have heard it and I always forget about it. And every time I hear it, I go, wow, that's great. Even though I've heard it dozens of times. Brain fog. And if any of you don't know what brain fog is, check out that glossary. It is such a real thing. Oh my goodness. I miss the days when my brain fully functioned. DT wrote, the truth is that everyone with a chronic illness is a lone crusader. At least in my country, there's very little awareness or knowledge of any of this. And I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope that at least maybe the people close to you can read the book, or at least your story in it, and maybe get a little more understanding that way. Someone pointed out that I can export the chat before ending the meeting. I thought there should be a way. Thank you. I will try and do that. Oh, a couple of people have now told me that. Excellent. And I do need to do that because this is not my Zoom account either. I'm borrowing it from somebody. So let's see. Leah would like to join the group that Jane doesn't know that she's forming. There are only about 50 people on this party, and you've already gotten, what, like 8 or 10 people who want to join? That just says something. And not everyone on here has chronic illness either. I know that because I know some of these folks. Okay, someone said that Anne's raising her hand, which I don't see it. Oh, you're physically raising your hand. Okay, I was looking for the raise hand feature on Zoom. Let me unmute you. Okay, yeah, no, wait, sorry, you're still muted. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I forgot the bit about raising the hand, you know, virtually. I was literally raising my hand. I was wondering, you've got the email, you send out the email thing, but did you say you don't have a group, do you? And did you give out an address or a name or something of your own group, or am I making that up?
No, I mean, I'm in a group, but no, Jane made a comment about being a social worker, having the ability to run a group, and everyone jumped on board and said, oh, I want to be part of this group.
I jumped on board too.
This was not a formal offer, so I'll be very curious to see where this goes.
Okay, but I jumped on board for Jane's, but I also wondered if you send out your email newsletter thing, right? But that's it.
Yeah, no, I don't have a group now. That's a different level, and I don't have the skill set to be facilitating a group. So somebody, Hannah asked, has anyone with chronic illness on this chat had to face an employer calling them back to work recently during the pandemic and having to explain they are at higher risk? And let's see, someone, I'm looking to see if anyone is nodding or raising a hand. Not seeing that yet, although I also know this isn't the best population to ask because so many of us are disabled and not working, or we're working from home already, so it might skew the impression that you'd get. Oh, although Deepti raised a hand. Where'd you go? Oh, hi. Is that something you want to speak to? Okay, let me unmute you. There you go.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So, like I said, I'm a teacher at a middle school. And so my school has been shut since 31st March, and all the children were sent home. And we had summer holidays in the months of April and May. So on May 22nd, I remember this date very clearly because that was the day the school was supposed to reopen. And my coordinator called me and she said, you're going to have to go into school because it's the first day of school and all the teachers have to physically meet. And I remember that was just like a day after lockdown had been imposed in my city. And I sat down and I cried all morning about it. I just cried and cried and cried. And I didn't even tell my parents I was crying. Like, I live with my parents right now, so I didn't tell them that I was crying, but I locked myself in my room and I just cried. And I was so afraid because the number of cases are really going up in my city. It's 500 a day by now. And I knew that, just one mask and a little bit of sanitizer is not going to help anything. So I was so terrified. I mean, I remember just crying all day and wondering, do I have to really do this? And maybe I should just say that I'm quitting for this year. And I mean, I really battled with it. And I tried telling my coordinator, look, I'm at a very high risk, but that didn't work. So I had to tell her, look, I live with old people and they are at high risk. And then she said, no, I'm sorry, this is just the rule. You don't have to stay for very long, but you have to come in. And then I just remember bundling up completely that day, like one mask and a lot of sanitizer and not looking at anybody, not touching anybody, not, trying not to make any contact with anyone. And we had ice breaking sessions where we were supposed to, not hold hands and stuff, but stand very close to each other. And I remember feeling so miserable, like, why am I doing this? What am I doing to myself? But yeah, it got better after that because there's a lot of social distancing. And I did go to school for a few days after that, but then the school was told to send all the employees home, luckily. But yeah, that's my story. I mean, I just want to share that I was so terrified I cried all day about it.
I'm so sorry. That's really, I don't have words for that. I'm glad you're home now, but I just, that's terrible. So that was actually the last of the questions that have been asked. If anyone wants to throw out another question, or if anyone on the phone wants to unmute themselves, now's a great time. Any other questions? I'm just scrolling through looking for hands and raised hands. There's nothing in the chat box. Okay.
Julie, this is Anna. Can you hear me?
Hey, Anna.
Hi. I don't know if this was done already. I missed the first few minutes of the call, but I want to give you a big round of applause and appreciation for everything you've done. I'm just getting so choked up. You've just dedicated hundreds, thousands of hours to all of this. And thank you so, so much.
Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. So the problem with Zoom is I can actually see myself when I'm blushing now, which I don't like. Thank you, Anna. Anna's awesome. Anna helped with some copy editing in the book, all pro bono, and it was very much appreciated. So thank you for that, and thank you for the celebration. That was very sweet. Okay, I see my mom has a raised hand. Let me see if I can unmute you. Go for it. What's your question?
We just want to say how proud we are of you because you've put your heart and soul into this, and it's amazing that you've been able to finish something so detailed in such a positive way, making a difference for a whole group of people and a whole segment of society. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Okay, you're all awesome. Let's see it. Check. Oh, I've got more stuff here. Hannah wrote, thanks for sharing that deep theme. Christine thanked me for the book. Oh, okay. People are saying very nice things about me. Rosie said, thank you for giving us authors the opportunity to share our stories. And I'm really glad that we were able to do that. I'm going to read a few more and then I'll get to those raised hands. Robin said, amen to what your mom just said. Oh, someone called me a superhero. Okay, you guys are all awesome. Kathleen, let me unmute you. What did you want to say? So I can see your hand. It's not unmuting. Okay, it's not unmuting. I don't know why. Can you unmute yourself? For some reason, your microphone, oh, it looks like your microphone is disabled altogether, not on my end. But if you're able to fix that, you can ask your question. Or you can type, if you're able to type, you can put something in the chat box. Oh, there you go. Okay, what's up, Kathleen?
Hi, my name is Kathleen Gemmel, and I wrote a story about my chronic illness, which is mental illness, and my struggle primarily with obsessive compulsive disorder. And we didn't really address mental illness in our launch party today. And I just thought I'd bring it up and say if anybody wants to discuss that with me at some point, I'd love to. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Yes, there's so many things I couldn't cover it all, but I do appreciate you pointing that out. And I will make an effort to make sure I cover mental illness issues more in any future talks, especially one day when the world opens up and maybe I do a talk. Okay, so it looks like the Q&A seems to be about over, and it's like 2 o'clock. So let's wind this thing up. So let's see. If you're watching this live, the book is currently discounted a bit, although for some reason Amazon isn't showing the percentage like it should. It is. And here's the link to the chat box. It's discounted today and tomorrow, so those are excellent days to get the book if you want to. And let's see. As someone wrote, often emotional and physical illness go together. Very true. Okay, let's see. So yes, if you're watching this live, you can get the discount through Monday. Whatever Monday might be for you, I don't know, but Monday my time. So you can check that out. If you, like I said before, there will be a recording of this available with captions on it. And if my recording did not fail, there will be a transcript, and those will both be available later this week. I will mail that out to everyone on the email list. I'm going to do a quick mention of this really fantastic design. I came up with this concept, and Kate, who did the formatting for the book, had actually done this design. So it says, not all disabilities look the same. And there are pictures of 6 people. With a service dog, a black man in a wheelchair, a woman wearing a hijab, a man with a kippah, a boy on crutches, a woman in a rainbow shirt with a cane. And the idea is to show that I wanted more representation, but we could only fit so much in the graphic. The idea is just to show that not all disabilities look the same. And if you want this, this is a shirt, but I have it on my water bottle and on a tote bag, and I have it on a bumper sticker. Oh, it's probably backwards, but there you go. So I'll put the link if anyone's interested. It's mentioned at the back of the book, and I had these created several years ago, but we're starting to see it more now. Okay, so somebody said, also to be considered, Jaden wrote, also to be considered the issue of medical trauma, and Rosie very much agrees. Yeah, that is definitely a big issue for sure. It's its own topic. I mentioned a giveaway. So at the back of the book, there's a bonus, and it's how to complete a big project while living with chronic illnesses. So what I did is I talked about how I did this book and how I managed the various aspects of it. I think that probably anyone can get some benefit, because who doesn't need project management help? But I think especially for people with chronic illnesses, this could be helpful. So I'm putting the link here. It's chronicillnesstruths.com/bonus. And if you go there and sign up, you'll get a link to download a PDF of it. And then there's also a link for a YouTube video where I read the PDF. So it's the same content. I just wanted to have different formats available. And I hope that will help folks, because I know a lot of people were interested in that. And I think that's about it. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit like below because that would help. And please subscribe. It's probably in that direction, but could be there. Hit the box because I'd love to get to my first 50 subscribers on the channel. And if you're not on YouTube and you're here live and you want to hang out and unmute and chat for a bit, we can totally do that. I would love to do that. But aside from that, I'm going to say I think that's about it. So thank you all so much for being here and helping to make this really special. This was such a big deal, and it's hard to do this sitting here alone in my apartment, but you know, an event like this really helps a lot. So thank you, everybody. And yes, thank you for helping me, because this book has just been, I guess you could say, a labor of love, and I'm so excited that it's out in the world now. So thank you.